All right, welcome back for our session 9. We are still on the Sixth Commandment by popular demand. And so there are some things that we didn't get to last time, and you guys wanted to talk about them, so let's do that. There were also a couple of things that we didn't get to in the Fifth Commandment either. We'll see how far we get. If we finish up with the Sixth Commandment, we still have time. We'll go back and take a look at that Fifth Commandment again. So this is the episode on the YouTubes where we catch up on what we've missed. It's not a recap episode though. So, Sixth Commandment is you shall not commit adultery, and that's going to be covering a lot of things. Paul makes a big deal about not committing sexual immorality, and that's a wide-ranging topic. We talked about some of them already. Let's see. Talked about adultery and divorce and the place of sex in marriage, and let's see. Did we talk about I think we talked about it a little bit, how sex is something that within marriage, within that committed relationship of the person I'm with isn't going anywhere, becomes a very something that cements marriage together. However, when that commitment is not there, sex becomes the thing that causes the worry of, is this person still going to be here or not? It's so within marriage, it builds stability. Outside of marriage, it builds instability, because men will offer what looks like love for sex, and women will offer what looks like sex for love. And without that commitment, there is that worry of, is this person going to stay? Is this person going to be here when I need them? Our society today likes to have everyone move in together. The statistics are really kind of scary on that. I know someone has more exact statistics than I can quote off the top of my head. But the failure rate of marriages that started with living together is exponentially higher than those who abstained and waited until marriage. Even the marriage afterwards, since it was built on instability, doesn't instantly become stable just because there's a paper document. Having something stable is important. It's like trying to build a bridge by starting with a rickety old ladder, laying it out there, getting some frayed rope, tying it off, and going, okay, we got to start. Let's get the concrete out. No, it does not work well that way. Can it work? Yes.
Eventually.
Does it take a lot of work to get there? Yes. There's a lot it's like It's like saying, I'm going to get a head start on this race, and then you run the wrong direction. And then the gun goes off and you realize, oh, I guess I need to go the other way. And you turn around and you're further away from the starting line than when you started. And so, the thing is that our brains are wired. Just the way our brains work is it starts associating one thing with another. And if you start associating sex with uncertainty, it's really hard to undo that. But this is also why our brains are also why pornography is as big a problem as it is. Because instead of going into a relationship and having insecurity, you go into having no relationship, and you know what? Those pictures on the internet will do anything that you type in. And it gives a false sense of control. And what it does is actually fires so much dopamine in your head that your brain goes, that's what I'm looking for. I need more of that. And the pornography isn't a healthy relationship. It isn't something built on love. It is instead me having control over what the images do. Because if you like one, you can bring up more. If you don't like one, you can exclude them out. And there is so much of it available online that it's just ridiculous.
I got flooded with a bunch of absolutely repulsive stuff. A few weeks ago, I had to go through almost every day and ban sources for a couple of weeks before I finally got rid of all of them.
The thing is that because of the way our brain works, pornography is addictive.
Yeah, I wouldn't be addicted. That was awful stuff. It was not attractive at all. Well, not to me at least. I'm sorry.
The thing is that you don't have to. People don't start with the worst ones. It's usually, let me look up, and it just slowly builds. It's it works the same way as a gambling addiction. You go in and you put your money into the slot machine, money comes out. Brain, dopamine receptors fire, or dopamine's released, and you go, I need that. And
put more in, get more out.
Now we do have to be aware that we need a certain level of dopamine in our brains. We need a reward system. Without dopamine, we would be incapable of doing anything because we would have no motivation. I was reading, there's a book out there. There are some graphic things in it, but it's called Dopamine Nation. And if you want to know more about how that works, there's some things in there that you just go, people do that? Yeah, they do. But without dopamine, there was a study done where they did a little surgery on a rat and removed its dopamine receptor, and I don't know how they do those things, but they do those things.
Very carefully.
Those that could not receive dopamine wouldn't even eat. pleasure and pain end up being in the same place in the brain, and the dopamine hits both of those. And so if there is some danger to it, if there is some harm that comes from it, along with the joy, it can be really addictive. Oh, I lost. That hurt. Oh, I won. That's amazing. That cycle, your brain goes, I need more of that. And so you can fall into that. This is how pornography can build from a risque picture to full-blown, what in the world are they doing? And this is how drug use can start with something minor and work up to something major. In fact, some drugs can replicate the hit of dopamine. And with enough dopamine, you don't care how much it hurts. What was it? I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but there is kind of a multiplication effect. I want to say that opium was 10 times, hit your system with 10 times more dopamine than sex. Morphine, 10 times more than opium. And fentanyl, I wanted to say, was 10 to 100 times more than morphine. So you're getting into the 10,000, 100,000 times range there. And now you start realizing why fentanyl in an uncontrolled environment kills people. Because that's a lot.
That nurse that got fired from a hospital for stealing drugs from IV lines and replacing them with tap water, apparently, according to the information that's coming out now, had started out with an injury and been given opiates and had become addicted.
Yeah. Opiates work on dopamine receptors.
It led her to do some things that she would never have done otherwise, I'm sure.
So pornography works on those same receptors in the same way. Pornography affects the brain the same way drugs do. It's an insidious thing, and people get addicted to it. So yeah, avoid those things. I also realize that it is so prevalent out there that you're going to be hard pressed to find anybody who hasn't at least seen this stuff. I mean, there's a difference between going, oh, no, and
Yes.
oh, I don't want to see that. And I don't want to see that. Hey, there's a whole bunch of these. No, don't do that.
Turn it off.
Yeah, the reason we're taking so much time on Sixth Commandment is these are the issues that we're dealing with today. These are the things that affect us today. And are these bigger sins because we spend a little more time on them? No.
They're just more destructive to us now than they would have been to another generation.
They are more prevalent.
Because they're more prevalent, they're more destructive. I doubt that my grandmother ran into many of the same things that I'm running into.
Well, depending on where you were 100 years ago, opium dens, and
Yeah.
the whole thing going
Yeah,
on.
opium was a legal drug. Now,
The internet or cell phones to let them know
Yeah.
what's going on. And giving ladies laudanum to deal with the hysteria. I mean, it's been around in one form or another.
yeah, people have been hurting each other for as long as sin has been around. And these things do hurt. They hurt our relationships with our spouses. They hurt our relationships with our families. They hurt our relationships with our communities. Even when we think we've got them hidden away and tucked behind the curtain so no one can see them, they still hurt. The one that we didn't get to that was a big one from last time was homosexuality. Now, I'm going to break homosexuality apart from transgenderism because I honestly do think they're two different things. Now, Bible says homosexuality is wrong. That's very clear. Now, it also says murder is wrong. It also says stealing is wrong. Is there forgiveness? Is there, if someone who said, hey, I'm dealing with feelings of being gay, and they came to church, we welcome them. Now, we don't say, hey, you're just fine the way you are, you can keep doing what you're doing, because that's not right.
That's the big difference.
But are you here because you found out that it hurts yourself, those you're with, those you love in your family? Yeah. Be here. This is a place for sinners. This is a place for the hurting. It's not the country club for the saints. It is the hospital for the sinner. That's what the church is.
Just don't let anybody know you're hurting.
Well, you say that, but we need to fix that. We need to be receptive to those who are hurting. If we see someone hurting, we need to go to them and be with them. Because enduring hurting is something everyone goes through. And if we don't know what to say to someone who's hurting, how are they going to know what to say to us when we're hurting? And you know what? Sometimes the answer isn't, I have the exact thing to say to you that's going to make you feel better.
No, it's not.
No, but we can lament with those who are hurting. We can cry with them. We can be there with them in the midst of it. And yeah, homosexuality is just like anything else that someone would come in with that they're hurting with. Now, we've got a world out there that says, well, that's all okay. Nobody is hurt by it. That's not true. Everyone involved, everyone around the person who's involved hurts.
We had it really vividly explained to us a generation back when AIDS first hit.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was limited pretty much to the homosexual community initially.
Mm-hmm. It didn't stay there exclusively,
No.
but but even today it is
Primarily.
found there.
Mm-hmm.
Are there better ways of dealing with it than in the 80s? Yeah. Is it still something that someone has to live with for the rest of their lives? Yeah. But it's not only the gay community that has to worry about sexually transmitted diseases. Everybody who is sexually immoral, as the Bible would say, everyone who is promiscuous or goes out and I'm with this guy one day and that guy not today, or whatever, it ends up becoming a much bigger problem because we devalue marriage so much. Because we divided sex from children so much. And you know, if our society, we're told by the world, oh, you prudes, you guys don't know how to have any fun. We'd be all oppressed if we were back in the way you did things. Well, you know what? Children would have parents at home. You know how big a difference that would make?
Yeah.
Make a huge difference. Now, agreed, there are some people who should not be parents who are, and who've done a lot of damage to their families because of it. But we don't use the minority to say that the majority is wrong. We don't use the outlier to prove that the concept is wrong.
Our own government is, I mean, you hear it in the news, like a wedding planner does not want to do a wedding for a gay couple, and they're saying, no, you have to.
Yeah,
And
it is.
it's just, it's,
So,
I feel like it's shoved down our throat, but you know, I came to you and my niece wrote us a letter saying, I know you're not gonna like this, you know, her Christian, but I am marrying a woman, and so, you know, I still talk to her, I still love her and support
Yeah.
her.
we still love
So-
those who are going through this,
but-
even when they insist on going through this.
But like her mother says, who's a devout Christian, she goes, I pray for her every day. She knows she's sinning. But
And
it's just, but you don't throw them out. You just
right. So part of the problem is that our society no longer. How quickly we went from keep the government out of our bedrooms to put the government, put my bedroom into somebody else's life government.
And enforce it.
We changed very quickly, and it's
They're
The-
desensitizing us.
it's done because it is the popular thing to do. Now, there was I'm trying to remember where I heard this from. There was, I'm stealing this story from somewhere, and I'd love to give it proper attribution. That isn't even a word. I'd love to properly attribute it, but I can't remember where I found it. It was about a family trying to decide where to go for dinner. But everyone in the family was so worried about one another's feelings. Well, I don't want to say something and go somewhere where somebody else is going to hate. So they finally came up with a place that they thought, well, this isn't exactly where I want to go, but I could make do with this. And so they go to that place to eat, and nobody enjoys it. And on the way home, they all realize, wait a minute, all of us really wanted to go over here, but none of us said so. Because we didn't want to offend each other. We have a habit in our society of staying quiet on things just so that we don't rock the boat. And there's something admirable to that. We don't want to go around and make everybody's lives miserable. We don't want to be the one who is we don't want to be the heel.
But look where we're at.
But with nobody standing up, we're going in a direction that nobody wants to go. And so maybe we should figure that out. So we've got a few people who are very loud, who are making a lot of noise, and
The silent
yeah,
majority is.
but the thing is the silent majority is like, you know what? The majority of people in America are like, you do you. That's great. You do you. I don't care.
But don't make me do you.
That's not
And that's what
you're
they're
hearing.
trying to do.
So this is why. But this idea of everyone can do what they want is so ingrained in all of us that standing up and saying you're wrong always feels like it's inviting problems.
That poor cake decorator that just refused to do was it a gay cake?
Yeah.
Wedding
Mhm.
cake? They're still suing him, trying to make him do a gay cake.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they could have a dozen other bakeries do a cake for them.
And it probably wasn't even a gay couple, it was a lawyer.
Probably.
How much
Yeah.
money can
Well,
you get?
well, whatever it ended up being,
There's,
there
I
were-
saw it
there
just
were-
recently, they're still
Mhm.
after him.
and you know what? There are a lot of people who said, well, you know what? You shouldn't rock the boat. Just
It's
make it.
easy. It's easier to
Yeah, it's easier to just let it go.
make them the ugliest darn cake ever, he'll never come back.
But
I could do that. I was a cake decorator, I know how to do
Put some
those things.
maylocks in
But-
there or something.
but it is.
It's like they're trying to take away the religious freedom.
Exactly,
Yes.
that's what they were
Yeah.
doing, yeah.
So there is a time where you do have to stand up and say, this is wrong. And we don't do it in order to say, ha, that's wrong, you're wrong, I'm right, I win. No, that's not our goal at all. We say that's wrong because people are getting hurt. And as loud as you want to say, no one is hurt by this, the millions of people who are hurting from this, who are told don't rock the boat, are hurting by themselves. And I don't think it's right for them to hurt by themselves. So we say it's wrong. Maybe not offensive, not in an offensive way, not in a loud way, not in a we're going to win way, but in a compassionate way. A way that says, we care too much about you and the people around you to let you do this. Because it does hurt people. Now, I said I separated homosexuality from transgenderism for a reason, and the reason is because I think there is something different going on in the head. Now, I don't mean that to say, oh, it's all in your head. Because, you know what? There are things that go on in our heads that are just as debilitating as cancer. Or just as debilitating as losing a limb. Gender dysphoria is a real thing. And people deal with it. And it sucks.
My niece's husband, big bad Marine, drill
Mhm.
instructor, 12 years in the Marines,
Mm-hmm.
came home from his last cruise, transgender. 2 little girls, beautiful little girls that were daddy's girls. He wanted Morgan to stay married to him. She goes, no. She goes, my happiness is just as important as your happiness, and this is
Mhm.
not what I signed up for.
Right.
But I don't understand, this is where I don't
Oh.
understand. He is living with a woman who is a lesbian. He's transgender. What does that make him? A transgender
So-
lesbian? Or-
So
I
so
just
this
don't
is
get it.
No, this is.
this is where we have this is where postmodernism has taken us, and I'm gonna get back to that.
Okay,
But if I go there now, I'm going to lose my train of thought of where I was going
Yeah.
first. But I want to get there because postmodernism has a lot to do with this. But gender dysphoria is a thing that can happen to a person, and it is a struggle that their mind goes through, and they wonder, am I better off as a different gender? Am I better off being a woman or instead of a man, or the other way around? The answer universally up until 5 years ago was all the research shows you are never happier.
right.
Every time someone goes through this, I don't know when it was that we decided we were going to say, oh yeah, you can do that. I think it was when people realized they could make money by selling it.
Mm-hmm. Meaning full surgery or just?
Yeah, surgery's expensive.
Yeah.
And
Follow the money.
Well, and all the people who are caught along the way, they can afford this much, but they can't afford this. They can do this, but not this.
so what ended up happening is that in the last 5, maybe 10 years, this started becoming popular. Because of the way we built our society, you could, especially in the academic realm, this is why it affects college age students, is because yeah, the whole education system said, hey, this is how you build social status. This is how you get influence. This is how you get people to recognize you. This is how you get fame. And with fame comes money. With money comes power. You can have fame, money, power if you go this way.
There's the dopamines again.
The thing is that people are really good at figuring out the system and gaming it. People have been good at this for as long as there's been people. God asked Cain, where's your brother? Not because God needs to know where he is, but because he needs to ask Cain what he's done. And Cain answers, am I my brother's keeper? He doesn't say, I don't, he maybe he does say, I don't know. But he doesn't come at it from the, I didn't happen to, I'm completely ignorant. No, he turns it back on God and says, why are you asking me? That's not my responsibility. Go find someone whose responsibility it is. The answer to, am I my brother's keeper, is yes, you are.
A lot of the people who have gone into the transgender movement, I'm absolutely convinced, is because of societal pressure, the peer pressure.
So this is in academia. I'm going to put it secular academia. Karl Marx is a pretty big figure. Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, in its opening paragraphs, summarizes the battle between people as oppressor and oppressed. If you are the oppressor, you are evil, and you need to be overthrown. If you are the oppressed, you have a moral,
Imperative?
yes, a moral imperative to overthrow, thank you, to overthrow the oppressor by any means necessary. Any means necessary. Playing underhanded is a moral imperative under Marx. And so all of a sudden, our academics who've been living under Karl Marx have been identifying oppressors and oppressed. And of course, oppressors are anyone who doesn't agree with them, and oppressed are anyone who disagrees with them, anyone who's against anyone who disagrees with them. This is why the list of oppressed does not make sense, because Palestinians are under that. Palestinians are doing horrific things. Now, we don't need to get into the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict. That is a big topic and a big mess. But the Palestinians are counted as oppressed, even though they're the ones that are raping women and shooting civilians, and using civilians as human shields.
And beheading babies.
Yeah, so how do you respond to that? Well, you can respond badly to that, but again, oppressed are the marginalized people, and we make a coalition of all these marginalized people, and then we start ranking them. Well, the lowest ranking is the color of your skin. The next ranking is your gender. Third ranking is your gender identity. And so when you look at the economy that is created by this system, you make the most by by checking off all the boxes. You know what? People are willing to do all kinds of things to raise their social status. People will defraud the government. People will.
Oh, no, that's laudable.
You see, we do this. Anyone who's against the people that we're against, we're for, which is not really the right way of doing this.
I'm sorry.
Even if Jesus says those who aren't against us are for us, there are some things that we've got to actually consider. But by getting into by creating this, suddenly you've created a demand for being transgender. You can garner a whole lot of influence if you go down that route, but only if you're the right one. The thing is, they don't tell that to everybody. It's the same way humanity works for everything else. First 100 people down to our store gets a free thingamabob. And 1,000 people go down to the store. Well, I wasn't one of the first ones.
And I wanted a thingamabob.
Yeah. Right now, the demand for transgenders is falsely inflated by advertising. Now, is it advertising the same way that we're used to for corporations? Not exactly, but similar.
I could never believe when Bruce Jenner changed his sex.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he was the star athlete at the track and field Olympics when I was a girl.
And yeah, he was a star, and then he stopped being a star until he did that, and then he was a star again until until the politics weren't right.
He's
Because
Woman of the Year now.
He's a what?
Woman of the Year, he was voted.
yeah, but then the politics didn't line up exactly. So out again, and nobody wants anything to do.
Yeah, when he
There-
came to us,
People want all of these things without realizing how fickle they are. But the problem with this is that the changes you have to undergo are permanent.
I read an
This-
article that a guy wrote, and he said he lived as a transgender woman
Hmm.
and still wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And when he started doing more research into it, because they send you to a psychologist, but they send you to the psychiatrist or psychologist who's pro,
Hmm.
whatever you want to be. In fact, he wanted his girls to go to the pro, and no, they're not. But this guy started doing more research, and he says every time I put this up, the LGBTQ ABCD community takes it off.
Hmm.
And he said that it was reported that like 85, it was a big percentage of the people that have gone transgender are actually bipolar.
And they're
So-
not happy
They're
then
not happy
either.
then either, and they've already gone through all this surgery.
Yeah. The thing is that transgender surgery is treating the wrong problem.
Yes,
You can't change DNA, no matter what.
Yeah. And from a Christian perspective, we would say when God said He made the male and female, and God makes us, God didn't make a mistake. Now, are we still broken by sin? Yeah,
Oh, yes.
all of us are. Are some of us broken by sin in such ways that we're suffering immensely? Yes. How do we reach out to people who are suffering immensely? We be with them. And that's, sometimes it's hard because sometimes people don't want to be with us.
how do you help someone that doesn't want to be helped?
Well, they
This-
don't see
this-
it as help.
This is,
Well, usually it's a matter of letting them know you're there,
yeah,
and then it's kind of has to come from them.
yeah. Now, you could take the same approach that a lifeguard would take, but I don't recommend it. When a lifeguard comes, if you, without any training, try and go and save someone who's drowning, the odds of both of you drowning are are higher than you want them to be, because the person who is drowning will try to use you to get air, and neither of you are getting it. A lifeguard sometimes has to boom knock the person out to the point where they can't move in order to save them. I don't recommend this. This is not an endorsement of just going around knocking people out. Please don't do that. Because
Well, we were trained that if worst comes to case, you go up and get on them and push them down.
Hold them underwater till
Yeah,
they
you hold them under.
submit?
The biggest thing is to get around behind them, but the
Yeah.
biggest thing is whatever it takes.
so the thing is are we trained to help somebody through this? No.
No.
So don't try and be a lifeguard when you're not trained to be a lifeguard. Now, can you be there for them? Yeah. Can you listen? Yeah. You do not have to have every answer. I don't have every answer. If I don't have every answer, stop expecting that you're going to have every answer. Because some things are just too hard for us to figure out by ourselves, and that's why we need Jesus. That's why all people need Jesus.
Well, I've said this before, and I think it's still true that people don't know how to respond to somebody who is hurting, and so
Right.
they respond by avoiding the person so they don't have to
Yeah,
respond.
which is the exact opposite of what you should do.
Or belittling the problem. Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Or
it.
belittling, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
This too shall pass.
It does,
yeah,
trust me.
so people, I think people mean well, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
And some of
Good.
us feel like we're in hell already.
Yeah, good. It helps us forgive people when we know that they had good intentions, because we like to measure things like that. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. Without intending to, end up hurting the people around me. And when that happens, I have to go and apologize and say, I'm sorry, I messed up on that. You know, I have to do that a lot with my own family. But that's part of human nature, is we don't always get things right. And so when we don't get things right, we go and apologize. We have a fancy term for it in the church. We call it repentance. And sometimes the church has not responded right to people who are dealing with homosexuality and people who are dealing with transgender issues. And sometimes as a church we have to apologize on behalf of those who have gotten it wrong in the past, because there's no one else there to do it. The hurt is there. So we stand up for what is right, but we do so in love and compassion, and we apologize when we get it wrong. Now, getting it wrong doesn't mean that the other person says you're wrong. I've had times where I've thought people have been wrong, and I can't. They're so wrong, I can't stand it. Well, you know what? After time, I figured out, oh, you were right. This is usually my wife. You were right, dear. I told you so. That's not what I wanted to hear. Does that help answer some of the questions that come up?
It's so hard as family to
Yeah.
stand by and it just seems so very selfish of Justin.
Mm-hmm.
He had this beautiful family, and these two little girls it wasn't daddy's, or it wasn't our flag, it was daddy's flag, daddy's war, daddy's country, and for him to throw it all away. And then it's hard for us to be
Supportive of
so,
him.
yeah.
Well, we
can't-
can't support people who are hurting others, but we also remember that it is hurting people who hurt people.
Well, maybe if we can just we'll stay in Oregon and pray for him.
Does he have
Well, you
custody?
can see it in
No,
the
no,
Christian
they've got
community,
joint
Yeah.
different views. I mean,
But the oldest
LCA
right now is
doesn't
at an age where
condemn-
she doesn't.
Yeah.
homosexuality,
remembers
it's,
daddy.
it's okay.
And so
Well, she chose.
it is taking the easy way out of we're going to get along so well that we're going to give up what we believe.
That's right.
No, I think his mother and his father.
Yes, Gail.
I have a real problem with schools making a string of bathrooms for anybody and everybody.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I really have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I do not agree with that.
So so we've got a society, we've got a government that is either saying you can do your own thing or saying my way or the highway.
Well, you know, the
Or we can encourage, we
We-
encourage them by making all these choices, you know.
Yeah, and what we're really doing is taking structure away from children who need it. We're actually taking away from kids the one thing that they need to grow up into functioning adults. And doing it for the sake of the fad of the day.
this, I hate to keep going back to this, but the military is paying for
He did
this
his time.
transgender stuff.
He did
So-
his time.
Yeah, if he did his time, he's entitled, I guess.
So yeah, congratulations, this is what we voted for. This is the problem with, remember, the best form of government is a benevolent monarchy. The problem is that monarchies don't stay benevolent for very long.
Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
Democracy is great when all the people are moral.
Yeah.
When 51% of the people realize they can take 49% of the people's lunch, it is a problem. When it's two wolves and a sheep deciding what's for dinner, democracy isn't a great option. We've got a republic, and a republic is great as long as our representatives actually represent us.
If we had moral representation,
And so,
Who'd wanna be a representative?
yeah, this is the problem. We only had one George Washington.
We're heading toward Armageddon.
George Washington could have ascended to kinghood of the United States had he desired, or been president for life. And after 2 terms, he said, "I am walking away." And he was the first person in history to ever walk away from absolute power. And you know what?
Probably the only person.
Good on him.
Now we gotta kick him out.
So,
yeah, you can't kick him.
what's the joke? I'm not waiting to put my folks in an old folks home. I'm waiting to put them in Congress.
Oh.
So,
Yes, with what you're
With-
talking about with the bathrooms at the schools, I'd be happier if they would have just a whole row of individual bathrooms. One
Right
person
off the
at,
hall.
yeah, one person at a
you know,
time.
when I was a
With the
kid,
door
that would have
locked.
been great. Because going into the restroom at the school is like, I have no privacy.
Yeah,
No doors on the stalls.
yeah.
So, I don't know. The problem is
I'm not talking about
that
stalls, I'm talking about locked doors.
the problem is children are sinners too.
Yeah.
Whatever, get through this thing.
So, all right. With
I'm
that,
not raising kids now, I feel sorry for them.
with that, I think we'll wrap up there. And managed to do this in 2 parts with only 4 or 5 major rabbit holes.
One thing I want to point out is that
Yeah.
I don't think it's true that absolute power corrupts absolutely. This was pointed out to me back in a classical conversation with one of my classmates. Because God has absolute power, but He's not absolutely corrupt,
Ooh.
Yes, but
right?
he's absolutely perfect
But
too.
power reveals character, and absolute power will absolutely reveal a sinner's character.
That's a really good way of putting that.
Yeah.
I
Feel free to
like
share this. You
that.
can thank Isaiah from my classical conversation.
So,
Okay,
so
well,
absolute
absolute-
power reveals the character of the person absolutely. I like that.
So.
And we can't handle absolute power.
All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.